What is going on, Pats Nation? You guys already know who it is. Patriots Global back here with another video, and in this one, we are giving you guys the long-awaited 53-man roster prediction video. Something that I wanted to get out a couple of days ago. Unfortunately, having some connection Wi-Fi issues, hence why some of the videos lately have been laggy. Hopefully, this video does not have that issue. If you guys saw my stream on Bleacher Report a couple days ago, then you probably already know where this video is going to be headed. Shout out to all you guys who are supporting me on my streams over at Bleacher Report. We will be on Bleacher tonight after the Patriots' final preseason game here against the Titans. So link in the description below. Make sure you guys download that app and tune in as soon as that game is done to hear my thoughts on that game over on Bleacher Report. And on your way in, guys, make sure you leave a massive like on this video. Let's see if we can get this video to 400 likes. We got the last, second to last video to just over 300. You guys have been killing the game. Best fans out there, best community out there. I appreciate you guys and your love and support so much. Let's see. I know it's hard, but I know we can do it. Let's try to get to 400 likes. Just remember that I'm not asking you to like it for the looks. I'm asking you guys to like the video because it supports the channel tremendously in pushing this channel and pushing this video out into the rest of the YouTube world and making sure that these videos are found. So let's roll that Patriots Global intro and hop into today's breakdown. Disclaimer here too, guys, you're going to be getting two of these before roster cutdowns. You're getting this one, and then I want to drop another one probably Sunday. Roster cutdowns are Tuesday. I'm thinking about dropping my final record prediction Tuesday. I'm expecting there might be some things that do change in this final preseason game, some telling things in this final preseason game. So I would like to drop one more, but if I drop one more, is all dependent on how much you guys like this video. So like it and leave a comment. But without further ado, let's hop into this one. These uploaded a little weird, so I gotta look and make sure I bring up the correct ones here. But we do have some edits, so it's easier for you guys to follow along. Quarterbacks. We're gonna start with the quarterbacks here. I have 3 quarterbacks making the final roster for the Patriots: Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi, Malik Cunningham. This was very tough. This was very, very, very tough when it came down to what I wanted to do with Malik Cunningham, because it could really go either way. It could go with the Patriots only keep 2 quarterbacks in Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, and they give that extra roster spot to somewhere else. But Malik Cunningham rolls with the starters at time. I think they've developed a lot of time into him in trying to find a role for him, whether that's been at wide receiver, that I think he's been pretty good at being developed at from rookie minicamp up until this point, and then also using him as a return man on special teams, using him as a gunner on special teams also. So I really think that the Patriots do view Malik Cunningham as a guy that they want to continue to develop. Maybe if Mac Jones and this Patriots offense struggles, then maybe in certain games, there's a package for Malik Cunningham. Malik Cunningham is not your starting quarterback. Point blank. Malik Cunningham is not your starting quarterback. He's not fighting to be your starting quarterback. He's not going to be your starting quarterback at any point during the season, nor is he going to be your second string quarterback at any point in the season, unless one of these quarterbacks get injured, which knock on wood, that doesn't happen. He's not making this roster to be a quarterback. He's making this roster to have certain packages, but mainly because I believe if the Patriots did release Malik Cunningham, they would not be able to get him back on the practice squad. I think another team would claim him in some way, shape, or form, and New England would not be able to get him back. I think they're not done with this development yet with him at wide receiver, and I think this is something they want to continue to do next offseason, and the way and making sure they can do that is by putting him on this 53-man roster. So now that quarterbacks is up, let's move on here to running backs. That's wide receivers. Like I said, guys, when I uploaded this, I uploaded them in order, and it did not upload that way. Running backs here, I have 3, and I think this might change in my next roster prediction here. running backs. I have 3 running backs making this final roster: Zeke Elliott, Mondre, and Pierre Strong. I thought, do I keep 3? Do I keep 4? Historically, it seems like they like to keep 4, but I think that there's other positions on this roster that they're going to need. And one thing I do also want to preference by saying my roster breakdown is that when the Patriots do break down their roster, there's going to be certain guys that they can't cut because they won't clear waivers. Like another team is going to pick them up. So, with that being said, there's going to be some surprise cuts at first. There's going to be some guys that get cut and you say, what are they doing? But it's because they know they can get them back on the team later, or it's because they know that they can get him back on the practice squad and be elevated later. I looked at these 3 running backs, Mondre and Zeke. Clearly, your starting guys aren't going anywhere. I say Pierre Strong, just, a year ago, they used a 4th round pick on him. I don't see them cutting ties with him just yet, but also Pierre Strong gives the Patriots something that they don't have with any of these other running backs, and that is speed. Let's remember, Pierre Strong ran a 4.3 40-yard dash. We haven't gotten to see much of him, but we have been able to see a little of that speed translating when he's gotten the opportunity. And obviously, he was a rookie at first. Then he's been dealing with a little bit of injuries, which has kept him out of really seeing the potential he has. But we can't cut him without knowing what he's going to be. You look at Kevin Harris, who I don't think has been great this offseason, nor do I think that he plays on special teams. Is he great at blitz pickup, or is he even great as a pass catcher? And what he brings is very similar to what Mondre and Zeke Elliott are going to bring. So he's a guy 100% will clear waivers, 100% will be back on the practice squad, and then they can elevate him if they need to. At the end of the day, speed kills at any position, and I do believe that if the Patriots cut ties with Strong, that there would be some team in the NFL that would give him a chance due to that 4.3 speed. Not to mention the fact that that Pierre Strong also does play on special teams. So not only is he going to be on the roster for a depth piece and be a rotational piece with the speed he has, but also the fact that he does play on special teams, something that Kevin Harris doesn't have, which is why I have him cut. And then Ty Montgomery just dealing with injuries at this point. You have Zeke, you have Mondre, both guys that are 3 down backs. They can catch passes out of the backfield. They can run the ball, but then they can also pick up blitzes very, very well, especially Zeke Elliott. So with that being said, I just don't see Montgomery on here. Also, CJ Marable, I don't see why he would make this roster in any way, shape, or form. Nor do I know why he was signed. And then JJ Taylor, that's a guy that could be squeezing his way onto this roster. I think he's taken a big leap forward this offseason, and we are seeing that. And I think if they release him, this might be the year that another team does take a chance on him on their 53-man roster, especially if he performs great in this final 3rd preseason game. So just something to think about. My next roster prediction, depending on how JJ Taylor does tonight, might have 4 running backs here, but the only other guy that would push to make this final roster from a running back perspective would be JJ Taylor. So let's arguably the position everybody wants to know about, wide receiver. What do I think they do at wide receiver? And you see one name on here, right? You see Juju, Bourne, Parker, Douglas, Thornton, Booty. I do think all those guys make the roster, but I could see Tyquan Thornton being a guy that gets placed on injured reserve to start the season. We don't know where he is. He's considered day-to-day at this point, but I could see him not being ready for the start of the season, and I could see them saying, you know what? You're pretty much past on the depth chart at this point. You really haven't been performing all that great, at least up until the end of training camp. We'll be okay without you for 4 weeks. We need this roster spot, and there's no point on keeping you on here right now. So the reason he's on this list is the fact that before they can place him on IR, he does have to make the initial 53-man roster. If they place him on IR before he makes the initial 53, then Tyquan Thornton can't be brought back for the entire season. His season would be done. So that's why I have him on here, but I do think that he makes the initial 53, gets placed on IR, and that opens up a roster spot, meaning that I have Pitts being cut and I have Rally Webb being cut. Webb, a guy I think they'll get back on the practice squad. Pitts, a guy who I also think has put himself on the practice squad with how he's been performing as of late. Both of those guys should definitely clear waivers and should definitely be back on the Patriots practice squad, as where these other receivers, clearly, I think you let go of any of these guys, they get picked up. Thornton with the 4.2 speed, he gets picked up. Bourne, Parker, Juju, clearly those guys get picked up. Douglas, I think, has been a roster lock at this point for a long time. He's not going anywhere. And then Booty. This is probably the toughest one. This is the one that people look at, and it's a little controversial. Does he make the roster? Does he not make the roster? I'm not 100% confident he does, but he's performing well at the right time. As long as he stays healthy in this game, he's good to go. And I think how he performs tonight, or if he performs tonight, will be very telling on how the Patriots view him, especially heading on to this 53-man roster. I think he's very similar to like a Kendrick Bourne, a Juju Smith-Schuster, guys that fit this system very well. And again, he's performing very well at the right time. So if they cut him, they're not going to get him back. Another team is going to claim him. They're going to take a chance on him from what he's doing now, from what he was doing during his time at LSU. Someone will take a flyer on him. So if they want to keep him around, which they should, especially with Thornton's injury, then they are going to have him make that 53-man roster. Now, next up, let's look at tight ends. And this might be where you guys say, Patriots go, well, really? This is what you have going on? But yes, I do have two tight ends making this roster. I have Hunter Henry and Mike Gesicki, and that is about it. Again, why? It's because I think all of their other tight ends, all three, can get back onto the practice squad. Matt Sokol, Anthony Firkser, Johnny Lumpkin. None of those guys have solidified themselves as tight end 3, and none of them have proven to me that if we can't get them back on the practice squad, that it's a total loss. But none of them have also proved to me that another NFL team is going to put them on their 53-man roster. I think this will save the Patriots a roster spot that will need to go somewhere else, maybe to like the offensive line or the wide receiver room for keeping an extra receiver. But then you can elevate a guy like Matt Sokol or Firkser or Lumpkin, depending on who you play each week. Like week 1, you're going to need the blockers. Who do you go to? Sokol. But maybe when you get to a point where you just need an extra receiver on the field, you're not too worried about blocking. You want to run a little bit more 12 personnel. You want to run with jumbo wide receivers. If you want to run a set that has Firkser, Henry, and Gesicki on the field at the same time, then that's when you bump up Firkser from the practice squad. So I think that's what they do. It's a great way to save a roster spot, and they still get that tight end on a week-to-week basis, depending on what it is they need. Not too much to say there. And then moving on here to the offensive line. This is where the bodies start flying through. And this is where a big bulk of your 53-man roster is going to come from. As you can see, David Andrews, Jake Andrews, Cole Strange, Mike Onwenu, Trent Brown, Riley Reif, Antonio Mafi, City So, Chasen Hines, and Connor McDermott, all making my final roster. What does this mean? It means I have being cut Andrew Stuber, Michael Vanterpool, Bill Murray, and James Ferentz. All guys that I think they'll be able to get back on the practice squad, and all guys that don't deserve to make this roster. The problem with the Patriots offensive line is that there's so many questions. There's questions with starters. There's questions with backups. There's questions with continuity. There's questions at this point on which players are playing guard and which players are playing tackle. Because of that, I say keep as many as you can and figure it out along the way. Mac Jones rookie season, 2021, the Patriots were at a position where they didn't know who their right tackle to right guard was. They were switching up between if it was Mike Onwenu or if it was Ted Karras. At the end of the day, they rolled with Ted Karras a few weeks in, and that was the best offensive line matchup they had due to continuity. If they had to let go of Ted Karras at that time, obviously they wouldn't have been able to do that. My last guy on this list was Chasen Hines, but I think that he has played so dang well at guard that if they release him, another team will likely pick him up. And I think some experience, but also some depth at guard is not a bad thing. Obviously, even if they put Mike Onwenu at tackle, then Riley Reif's at guard, and he hasn't had a whole lot of experience at guard. Not to mention that you have Cole Strange coming in and out at times. He's been dealing with an injury. Onwenu himself has been dealing with an injury, even if he plays at guard. So I think rolling with some extra offensive linemen with all the questions we have is not a bad idea whatsoever. Before we keep this video rolling, guys, and get on to the defensive side of things, I do need to give a massive shout out to my friends over at BetUS who are sponsoring this channel for the entire 2023 season long. Massive shout out to them, guys. Make sure you bet responsibly. Make sure you're 21. Make sure your states allow you to bet first and foremost. Do it smart, do it safely. Betting is fun and is a great opportunity for you to bank and make some serious cash. But make sure you're doing it smart and make sure you're doing it responsibly and get some help if you or somebody you know is having an issue. But with BetUS right now, if you guys go to the link in the description below or pin in the comment section below, you guys can get a 125% sign-up bonus. Absolutely absurd. And what this means is, let's say you deposit $100, right? Just putting numbers out there. You deposit $100, and by using that link that I have in the comment section below and in the description below, that $100 will turn into $225. That is some serious cash to make some serious money. And the great thing about BetUS, my favorite thing about them, not only is the fact that they are available in most states, unlike a lot of betting apps out there. So the odds are if you're 21 and you want to bet, you can actually use BetUS, but also the fact that they have the best odds to bet on. And what I like best about them is that they have NFL futures. And what that means is, like, right now you can go to the app or go to the website and you can bet on which team is going to have the most amount of wins, which team is going to have the least amount of wins, which, by the way, it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. Literally use that 125% sign-up bonus now and bet on the Cardinals to have the fewest NFL wins, and that is quick, easy money. You can even bet on which team's going to make the playoffs. Right now, the New England Patriots are dark horses at making the playoffs, but I firmly believe they are going to. It is something I've bet on myself, and the outcome, because they're so low in chances of making the playoffs, can get you some serious dough. So go ahead and check out BetUS and use that 125% sign-up bonus. Remember to support the sponsors that support the channel, because without them, we would not be able to bring these videos to you. But let's get back to the... And so one more thing I will say about the offensive line that I just realized I forgot to say is that in terms of Calvin Anderson, I have him on the NFI list to start the season, the non-football injury list, which is what he's been on the entire offseason. He's making strides to coming back, but I don't think he's going to make enough strides to come back by week 1. So I think he's either going to be done for the season or he's going to be starting on that NFI list. But moving on here to defensive tackles, I have a total of 4 defensive tackles on this interior of the D-line. That's Barmore, Godchow, Guy, and Aquale. That meaning that the guys that I have being cut, Sam Roberts, Carl Davis, Jeremiah Farms, and Justice Tavai. No surprise there. I think that Farms and I think that Roberts have played very well. Davis is a guy that usually does make this roster, but I don't have him making the roster right now just because I don't think he's been playing great football. I think that he deals with injuries a lot of the times. He's a guy that isn't a pass rusher. He comes in as a big body to stuff the run. And we saw in this past preseason game when him and Lawrence Guy were in the middle of the defense that the Packers, even their backups, were able to run right through those guys. I think that they can get Carl Davis back on the practice squad if they really want, and they can elevate him. But I think that the Patriots have enough edge rushers that can play inside too, to where they'll be okay without Carl Davis, and that roster spot should go somewhere else. The rest of these should make perfect sense. You know, I think that Roberts has also had a good offseason, but because of those 2 penalties against the Packers and a long shot for him to already make the roster, he's probably not going to make it. And then Farms has been good at stopping the run, but I don't think he's done enough to make the roster. He could be a guy that they elevate on the practice squad also. But let's move on here to the edge rushers. Let's see. Is these my edge rushers? This is my edge rushers. Perfect. So as you can see, I have quite a few edge rushers making this final roster. Judon, Wise, White, Jennings, Uche. One thing I will say, Wise and White, both guys can play the edge, but both guys can also play the interior of the defensive line. So it's not like you're barely going to see Uche or you're barely going to see Judon. The guy you're going to see the least of is Jennings, who will probably only get like 30 to 40% of the Patriots' defensive snaps. But I would expect guys like White and Wise to play a good amount of snaps on the interior of the defensive line, which will get them onto the field. That means being cut. I have one lone guy. That's Ronnie Perkins. How Ronnie Perkins is on this team, what role Ronnie Perkins has on this team, I don't know. And this is easily one of Bill Belichick's biggest busts as a third-round pick. As for Trey Flowers, I think he's going to start the year on the PUP list. Maybe he makes the initial 53 and then is placed on the IR. He hasn't practiced at all. I think he's making strides to coming back, but I don't think he's going to make enough strides to start week one, nor is there, I think, a true role or reason for him to start week one. So I have him starting again on the PUP list, not originally on that 53-man roster. So moving on here, next is linebackers, and I think you guys are going to be a little disappointed. So linebackers I have, you're reading the screen right, Bentley, Tavai, Board, Mapu, and Munson. Board is a guy that's mainly going to be special teams, but I didn't include him on the specialist section just because he is still going to get a little bit of that rotation at linebacker. He's going to get some defensive snaps. He's going to get into that rotation. And then he's obviously going to be a depth piece also, with your main linebackers being Bentley, Tavai, and Chris Board. The reason I have Munson on here, he's kind of like a Chris Board. He's mainly going to be on special teams, but I do think that Calvin Munson has had a secretly good camp for the Patriots. Nothing crazy, but in terms of a couple of rotational snaps on defense from here to there, I think that he's had a quietly good camp, and he fits what the Patriots want to do. First and foremost, he fits what the Patriots want to do from a defensive standpoint, a lot more than somebody like Mack Wilson. And I had people on Bleacher Report coming at my neck when I said that Mack Wilson was a cut for me. Why is that crazy? He hasn't done good this offseason. He didn't do good last year. He didn't play a single defensive snap for the Patriots in the final 5 weeks of their 2022 season. He's not good at stopping the run. He gets lost at doing so. He constantly just shoots the gap. And it's either, hey, I'm in the right place at the right time and I make a great play, or I'm not and I get lost. I think he's pretty decent in pass coverage, but you have Mapu at this point, who I think gives you that same versatility, that same sideline to sideline speed, but he can also stop the run. So I don't really see a point in having somebody like Mack Wilson on this team. Maybe he gets back on the practice squad. I would assume he probably gets claimed by another team. And again, Calvin Munson gives you those special team reps that you'd be getting from Mack Wilson, but also is a good depth piece more in terms of what the Patriots want to do defensively than I think Mack Wilson does. And that obviously means that Giles Harris also gets released. Daniel Fago also gets released, and Carson Wells also gets released at that, which means that we are up here to the cornerback position. And there we go. So the cornerbacks I have making this roster: John Jones, Marcus Jones, Christian Gonzalez, Jonathan Jones, Sean Wade, and Miles Bryant, which means being cut, I have Amir Speed, Isaiah Bolden, Rodney Randall, and Mosley also being cut. This one could be a little controversial. Anybody saying that Miles Bryant will be cut or should be cut, he's making this team. 120%, he is making this team, especially with issues with John Jones and Christian Gonzalez both being injured. Obviously, John Jones not playing for about a month now. Christian Gonzalez going down in the final practice of the Patriots training camp. Don't know how severe that injury is. Obviously, we'll see. But both of those guys still dealing with some type of injuries. This cornerback room is a little bit shaken up at this point. Obviously, with Mills playing safety too, he doesn't give you that cornerback depth. Miles Bryant has had a very, very good training camp. Very, very good. And I know I posted the video of him getting beat by Demario Douglas, but that was more to showcase what Demario Douglas is doing as a rookie and not Miles Bryant. As long as Miles Bryant isn't playing like as an outside corner or isn't asked to go up against the fastest corner, then I think the Patriots are okay. And again, he's been performing really, really well. The biggest surprise for most is probably Shaun Wade. But again, Shaun Wade is a guy that realistically should play in the slot. He should play in the inside. That's where he's been best. But he does give you a body at, I think, 6'1" he is, as where the Patriots really don't have a lot of those guys. Christian Gonzalez is your tallest corner outside of those. You have Miles Bryant, Jack Jones, John Jones, and Marcus Jones all being in that 5-foot range. So having another guy who can at least match up from a height perspective will give the Patriots at least a little bit of depth. But also, Wade has had a very good camp. It's been secret, but it's been good. He's had some bad moments in the preseason. He obviously gave up a couple of touchdowns here and there, but I think he's going to be a lot more polished when he's only getting rotational snaps. But then also, he's going to be going up against the team's worst wide receiver anyway, so I don't really think it matters. Shut down John Mechie. So again, I think that he has put himself on the roster, and I think if they cut him, another team will claim him. As for me not putting, guys like Speed or Bolden on this list, as I try to get myself back on the screen here, the reason that I didn't put those guys on is because I think Isaiah Bolden dealing with this injury, I know it's just a concussion, but we don't know how severe it is. He could be out for a while. So I think they put him back on the practice squad, or they just IR him and say, you showed us a good amount, but we'll see you next season. You weren't going to make the roster right now anyway because of this injury. And then Speed has made some plays on special teams, but I think they have enough bodies there. If they release him, they can put him back on the practice squad and get him back easily if they want to. And he hasn't showed me anything other than being a gunner on special teams. That has been literally the only thing that he's shown, and I don't even think he's done enough of that to make the final roster. So I do think that he gets released too, which does bring us up now to the safeties. There we go. So I have a total of 4 safeties making this list, and that should be really no surprise to anyone. Mills, Duggar, Peppers, Phillips, those are your starting safeties. I thought, do I want to put Bledsoe on here? They really like him, but unfortunately, that's just not how this one panned out for me. I also think he's had some rough moments here in these preseason games, but again, how he plays or how much he plays, I guess you could say, in this final preseason game will be very telling on how they view him. And if he really just doesn't play at all, then maybe he's a guy that is a roster lock at this point. But right now, I have Bledsoe and Hawkins being the only guys released, both of which they can get back on the practice squad again and absolutely have no issues. So there should be no surprises here. And then moving on to specialist, I have Ryland, Behringer, Slater, Cardona, and Schooler all making this roster. That means I have Waitman being cut as a punter. They'll probably put him on the practice squad just as an insurance policy if Behringer is being inconsistent or having any types of issues. I would say the biggest controversial part of the specialist section is going to be not keeping 2 kickers. That might happen on my final roster prediction, but right now I'm not. They're not going to cut Ryland, first and foremost. I don't see how they would IR him, even with a ghost injury. There's been nothing to showcase that. So he makes this roster, a 4th-round pick they traded up for. They will not cut him. So it's either Ryland's your only kicker or they're rolling with 2 kickers. I don't think any guy has won that job between him and Nick Folk. So I think there's a real world in which they do. I think neither of those guys have ran away with the job when they've had the opportunity. It seems like whenever one guy has inconsistencies, the next guy also has inconsistencies. So I think that's still pretty wide open, and that's probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for in this final preseason game. But right now, I just have the rookie on the roster. Whether they release Folk, whether they trade him for capital, we'll see, but I just have him being released. And then the other specialist being cut is Cody Davis. That's the only other one. He hasn't played all offseason. He got injured early in the season last year. He's in his 30s, coming off a season-ending injury. What's the point in having him here? I don't know. It's not even a point of putting him on IR. Release him. He's done. He's going to retire from the NFL. But that is my record prediction. I keep saying that. Roster prediction for the New England Patriots. Again, we will be having one more of these drop before Tuesday's roster cutdowns. What are your thoughts on my list? What would you change? What did you agree with? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to leave a big like on this video, and of course, subscribe to the channel for all of your New England Patriots news. I appreciate you guys for watching, and of course,